From the National Catholic Register, this is Register Radio, bringing light and clarity to the news and topics that affect your life.
The Paris Olympics are underway with more than 10,000 athletes competing. We talked to a former Olympian-turned-priest, Father Joe Fitzgerald, who is now in Paris as a chaplain. Then our Europe correspondent, Solene Tadie, reports on the Holy Games that coincide with the Olympic Games. Lastly, we turn to the news that the Knights of Columbus covered artwork of disgraced priest and artist Father Marko Rupnik at the John Paul II Shrine in Washington, D.C. Register Editor-in-Chief Shannon Mullen joins us for that discussion. I'm Jeanette DeMello, Executive Director of the National Catholic Register and Catholic News Agency, your host here on Register Radio. I'm joined, as usual, by my co-host, Matthew Bunson, who is Vice President and Editorial Director of EWTN News. So the Olympic Games are on in Paris. They're on from July 26th to August 11th with between 15 and 20 million visitors to the city and, as I said, 10,000 athletes. So this is a great opportunity with the Olympics and the Paralympics for the Catholic Church to provide pastoral care to the world of sports. And our first guest, Father Joe Fitzgerald, is a part of that pastoral care. He's a priest for the Diocese of Rockville Center, but uniquely, he competed in the 1996 Games in Atlanta on the U.S. handball team. He joins us now from Paris. Welcome, Father Joe.
Thanks, Jeanette. Thanks so much. Hello, everybody.
So you have spoken to the athletes just today. So we're talking on Thursday evening, the evening before the games, and you had an opportunity to address English-speaking visitors and athletes. What did you say to them?
So tonight, the Holy Games initiative that was started by the French bishops gathered in St. Denis Basilica. So I'm here, and there was a young priest, a newly ordained priest who participated in judo, not at the Olympic level, but he spoke first and addressed the whole group of volunteers as well as some of the athletes who were coming, and I did as well. Tomorrow is the opening ceremony, so some athletes obviously are training or aren't able to be here. In fact, some competition began this evening, but it was really powerful. It was an awesome opportunity, first of all, to be in St. Denis, which is one of the most like the heart of the Catholic Church here in the history of Catholic France. And just the history of all the great saints who prayed here and some who were buried here. So it's just a really powerful experience for me.
So as I mentioned, you were a former Olympian. Your handball was your sport, and you played on the U.S. team in 1996. So that's in Atlanta, the Atlanta Games. What that's a great right. experience!
It was a powerful experience, and I would just say it's great reverence and gentleness. But you're never a former Olympian, just like you're never a former Marine, and you're never unbaptized. So
yeah, there you go. You are an Olympian.
You're always an Olympian, and that's one of the great honors that carries in that journey. And so in 1996, I participated for the United States U.S. handball team. After college, I made the national team and spent about 10 years on the national team participating. But the culmination, of course, was the 96 Games in Atlanta, and I was blessed and fortunate to play professionally over in Europe and Sweden. It's been an incredible experience. And to have that perspective is also like getting a sense of what's going on in the hearts of the athletes with opening ceremonies coming tomorrow and the competitions. And obviously they've gone through just the orientation and conversations with different of the leadership, not only here in France, but their own teams. So there's a lot of activity. And the hope is that when there's that pause, that we provide a space for them.
Father, let's talk about that connection of faith and sports. You're a priest, of course, and that means that you're doing a lot of running, I know, on a daily basis. St. Paul uses the analogy about running the race. But how did your life as an athlete try to help prepare you for the life you're living now as a Catholic priest?
Well, the gift is that it started in my family. My mom and dad were strong Catholics. My father was an athlete as well, and showed us that whether he was playing, like recreational softball on a Sunday, we went to mass, and that was instilled in us. And so for me, that was such an integral part of who I was, and that development is so similar in the discipline and the practice And the challenge, I think, that always comes with the athletes, and which I've experienced myself, is that we can get into that situation of that performance experience, and we can almost make God a coach instead of God, our beloved Father. And so it's actually taken me some time to almost forget that, or to die to that, to realize that the ultimate race is this relationship that really isn't a race. It's being present and sitting with the Lord, knowing that you're a beloved daughter and son of God, whether you win the gold medal or you finish in last place or you don't go to the Olympics. And I think that is, I want to make sure that these that's, which is what I spoke about tonight, that these young men and women, when the Olympics is over, or the quad is over, and they go on to the next part of their life, like, there is a drop. There's a real drop in, just from the standpoint of where, where's my identity? I was training for the Olympics. I was going for gold, and now who am I? Now what do I do? And just once again, to turn them back, let them face the Lord, that you're beloved, your beloved daughter and son, and so that's really what with my own personal experience as an athlete, as an Olympian, I'm trying to communicate that to those that we're interacting.
It's really a wonderful message, because, not everyone gets the chance to play at this level, at the level of an Olympian. But there are so many people who play sports, and it can offer a kind of structure in their lives. It offers an experience of a team, right, and a coach and all of that. But it is a performance kind of arena, right, where you do feel the need to perform to get that praise. And so, Father, I think your message is such an important one for every athlete out there to hear. We really need that kind of thing in our world of sports. Which brings me to to this Holy Games initiative, right? That's what you're there for. And here we are on Register Radio. We're talking about this on EWTN Radio. I'm just going to plug our show. This is Jeanette DeMello with my co-host Matthew Bunson. I'm speaking to Father Joe Fitzgerald, who was an Olympian, performed, here I go, participated in the 1996 Olympics, and now he's a chaplain at the Olympic Games. We've been talking about the connection between faith and sports, and now we're going to turn to these Holy Games. I want to bring Solene Tadie, our Europe correspondent, who's covered these Holy Games, into the conversation. Solene, thanks for being with us.
Hello, Jeanette. Hello, everyone.
To talk about the Holy Games, or to write about the Holy Games as the French Church, that's the Archdiocese of Paris and the bishops of France, put together this event. What exactly is it? How is it working?
Yes, Jeanette, the leaders of the church in France have understood the enormous opportunity for evangelization represented by the Olympic Games, so they have decided to seize it by launching the so-called Holy Games Missionary Program. So yes, it is co-sponsored both by the Archdiocese of Paris and the French Bishops' Conference. It consists of a series of activities taking place basically in parallel with the Olympics, first during the Olympics and then also during the Paralympic Games, which will take place later from August 28 to September 8. So it is mostly meant for young people, as we could imagine, with somehow, it could be also somehow an equivalent of World Youth Day, with a lot of activities, for example, summer routes, which will bring together thousands of young people between 18 and 35 years old to take part in training courses, volunteer work, time of prayer, fraternal sharing, and so on. It is basically intended as a call to holiness through sport, and as a means also of making it accessible, to make faith and sports accessible to as many people as possible, especially also the most vulnerable who usually don't have access to that. And the church really didn't want to miss this opportunity, indeed, especially at a time when crises and difficult events are multiplying in the country. And the Catholic faithful were eager to have a new opportunity of new positive dynamics. So the timing was quite perfect, we could say.
Absolutely. And Father Joe, you being there and on the ground and working in these Holy Games, how many other priests are taking part? I'm imagining they're priests of every language so that you can minister to all sorts of people. So tell me a little bit more about who's a part of the Holy Games initiative.
So the initial contact I had over here was with Monsignor Marcet, who was one of the auxiliary bishops, and Father Jason Ioka, this newly ordained priest. And there are 40 chaplains, and some of them are lay women and men. We have 4 focus missionaries. Actually, there's 3 now, focus missionaries who are over here. Most of the priests are from here, from France, but there are also some opportunities for some non-denominational prayerful people, and I think there's an imam and a rabbi as well. But the main focus has really been the chaplains, just to create a space. In my own experience in Atlanta, it was kind of like this, for lack of a better term, like a meditation room. Like if you had a bad day, you kind of go find that. But they've really made an intentional movement here so much where the relationship with the Holy Games and the International Olympic Committee, or the bishops and the International Olympic Committee, one of the main exits walks right by where this area is. And then there's a Catholic church just outside the village. So when you go in and out of the village, you got to pass this international center, which is, again, prepares the opportunity for anybody that wants to kind of poke in for a prayer or a miraculous medal, like that kind of thing, or rosaries. So that's present there. And then just outside is one of these great churches. I mean, it's incredible churches here in France. And it's beautiful. I mean, like the priests are vibrant and excited, and like I said, this event's going on right now. I'm cheering in the back, so it's really, really exciting. But one of the main reasons why I'm here is the bishops asked me to come to observe, because in 4 years we host in 2028, and if we and again, the Holy Games team is amazing. I mean, from the top, this woman Isabella Deschantel, she's incredible. To every volunteer. But the biggest challenge is they were not able to get the word out, and so the hope is to start as soon as possible if we're going to do a similar experience in 2028. But it is great. I mean, the conversations have been fruitful. I spoke with a couple of kids from USA Swimming. I wound up meeting this guy from Sweden who I played professionally in Sweden, and I actually knew him 30 years ago.
Wow.
He was on the Olympic so it's like you just meet these people, and it's one powerful experience after another. And 30 years ago, I was in a priest, and he's like, "What's the deal with this?"
Right.
I'm like, "Well, I had a powerful conversion, and and then it becomes an opportunity to proclaim the gospel and how God can change everything, and God is so good." So, but the Holy Games initiative is a really powerful. I mean, the bishops of certainly of France, of Paris, and of France have done an incredible job for this opportunity, really, to bring God into, and the International Olympic Committee was very receptive, more so than the committee for Paris 2024. Like the national committee was less receptive, which was with the feedback I got. But then the IOC is like, "Hey, this is a great idea." And if you look at the experiences of Simone Biles, who stopped competing in the last Olympics because of anxiety, Michael Phelps, who struggled with wanting to take his life, we have to create a space for these young men and women when the Olympics is over.
Absolutely. Solene, I do want to turn to you for one last question, and this is important because there are Catholic roots to the modern Olympics. So the first modern Olympics were held in 1896 in Athens. So that's 100 years before Father Joe competed, right? And what are the Catholic roots? Can you just close us out, just giving us a little bit of information about the Catholic roots of Olympics?
Yes, it's a beautiful fact, and it's actually a fact that is still largely unknown, of course, but we are here to remind that. So yeah, the roots of these games, the games what we know today, the modern games, are deeply Catholic. In fact, they are the direct fruit of a friendship between the French pedagogue Pierre de Coubertin and the Dominican priest Henri Didon. And actually, we owe Father Didon the current motto of the International Olympic Committee, Situs, Altius, Fortius, faster, higher, stronger in English. And so we owe it to a Dominican priest. And also a fun and providential fact is that the very first Olympic champion of the first games, you mentioned in 1896, was none other than James Connolly, an Irish-American devout Catholic who was also a member of the Knights of Columbus. And at that time, the initiative was strongly supported by Pope Pius X himself. He encouraged Coubertin in his efforts, especially to increase the educational scope of the Games. eventually to evangelize, because Coubertin's approach was to offer a kind of alternative to war by allowing the bellicose instincts of nations to be transferred to sports. And it was really something that was needed at that time, at the beginning of the 20th century. And we know how it went, but it was all the more necessary. So the church really supported it. So, it is indissociable, again, from the church history. So it is something that is very important to remind to everyone.
Yes, and I want to thank both of you. Thank you to both of you for being on the show today. Solene's story can be found at ncregister.com. Paris Olympics, church gears up for Holy Games outreach. And the story about the first Olympian can also be found. The first winner of modern Olympics was a Catholic at ncregister.com. So we're going to turn now to the next segment. So you've been listening to Register Radio. Shannon Mullen will join us shortly to talk about Father Rupnik and his artwork. Stay tuned for more on EWTN Radio.
Let's return to Register Radio on EWTN.
Welcome back. I'm Jeanette DeMello, Executive Director of the National Catholic Register and Catholic News Agency, your host here on Register Radio. I'm joined by my co-host, Matthew Bunson, who is Vice President and Editorial Director of EWTN News. We were just talking about the Olympics and the Catholic chaplains who are ministering there. EWTN News in Depth had the priest, the young priest of Paris, Father Jason Noikia, on for the July 26th show with Catherine Hajo on In Depth, and it's worth watching. So go to our app to find that conversation there too, as well as the news of the Olympics throughout next week. But right now we're talking about a more sensitive, a darker topic really, and that is the artwork of Father Marko Rupnik, who has been disgraced, accused of sexual abuse and psychological abuse. His artwork is all over the world, but was featured prominently at the shrine of John Paul II in Washington, D.C. The Knights of Columbus, who run that shrine, have now decided to cover it up. And this is a first. It's the first artwork by Rupnik that has really been covered as far as I'm aware. We've got Shannon Mullen on to talk about this. Shannon is Editor-in-Chief of the National Catholic Register. Hi, Shannon.
Hi, Jeanette.
So, Shannon, we've been covering this for a few years now. I think it's important, though, that we start with a little bit of what is the case against Jesuit priest Father Marko Rupnik. Can you give us a brief summary?
Absolutely. For the record, I'd much rather talk about the Olympics, but
right,
because this is a dark case. It started back, or it came to the public's attention in December of 2022. Feels like it's been around longer than that, but with allegations by a number of women, a growing list of women who were or still are religious sisters in a religious community that Father Rupnik co-founded in his native country of Slovenia. And the allegations, as you said, very disturbing, not only sexual abuse, but psychological abuse, spiritual abuse, and in a serialized kind of way. This goes back, I should say, to the 1990s. Some of these allegations, and it's already been come before the Vatican really twice in two occasions, but nothing really was lasting. Action was taken against Father Rupnik. Now the case has been reopened. There's been a worldwide outcry to reopen the case, and there's an ongoing Vatican investigation in Rome that's looking into these allegations.
Yeah, Shannon, Rupnik's art is found literally all over the world. There are about 200 plus locations at cathedrals, basilicas, shrines, with the one here in Washington, D.C. There's been a lot of controversy about what should be done with it, but what are the arguments for and against that have been posed?
I'll start with against. Against is, you hear that destroying art is just a generally bad idea and a drastic step to take to destroy a work of art. And you also hear of the case of Caravaggio, who was infamously ill-tempered, killed a man at one point, and yet is one of the great masters in his arts all over Rome and all over the world. But the argument in favor of taking an action like the Knights have taken is that these allegations are so serious, and there is a spiritual dimension to them. The allegations are that Rupnik's alleged perversions and abusive behavior was really interwoven into his artistic process, even into his art. So, we've heard things, again, allegations, not proven, that some of his victims see symbolisms in the art itself that relates to some of these disturbing things that he's accused of.
Yeah, well, you've written an op-ed piece for the Register commending the Knights and Supreme Knight Patrick Kelly for their decision. What was your take, and why did you think that this was important to do?
Yeah, as I tried to explain in the piece, this was not an easy situation for the Knights to be in. If anyone has been to the John Paul II shrine and has seen this art, we think we have this mistaken impression of mosaics as something maybe even in a frame or a larger piece, but sort of easily removable. No, I mean these mosaics are the walls essentially in these chapels. So just from an engineering standpoint, removing them is no easy feat. So they had this sort of technical challenge, but then they also had, I think, a couple of other boxes to check off. One is to act in a timely way. I mean, people didn't want to see them drag this out. Secondly, they wanted to be respectful of the process that's going on at the Vatican, and respectful, rightly so, of Father Rupnik's due process. And they also wanted to show solidarity with victims, not only with the alleged victims of Father Rupnik, but just victims of abuse of every kind, right? People who were, have very deep personal wounds related to this type of behavior. And so I made the case that they really kind of checked all those boxes in an artful but simple way.
Right. The Supreme Knight, Patrick Kelly, was on EWTN News Nightly and kind of described exactly what you said. That was on July 11th, that show, if anyone wants to go to our app, the EWTN app, and watch his conversation on EWTN News Nightly about what, his reasoning. But I think compassion for victims was a huge reason. And I think that's really what's motivating, as you said, because the art itself seems to be tied up in some of his kind of spiritual and strange ways with his victims, who were often his students or his directees, right? And so this is really become a very complicated case. There are others who have promised that they would like to tear down or to cover the art, such as the Bishop of Lourdes, because this art features prominently on the facade of the great church there in Lourdes, France. And so there's I think a lot of people watching, wouldn't you say, Shannon, what happened there in the shrine in D.C.?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just a shrine, even though it is a well-known, very popular shrine. It's the Knights, right? And the Knights are just a worldwide fraternal organization, one of the largest charities in the world, and have just done innumerable good for the church and kind of humanity in general. So how they act really does carry a lot of weight versus maybe an isolated case locations where they have Rupnik installations around the world.
Very, very briefly, and I don't want to harp on something too negative, but the Vatican hasn't always gotten the message here, right? I mean, the communications office has defended the use of Rupnik art in some of their web pages and whatnot, and so this is really something that is worth this kind of attention. That's one of the reasons we've done it here on Register Radio and at ncregister.com. So I really do invite our listeners to go to ncregister.com and stay on top of this news. It's an interesting story, and it's ongoing. It will be for a while. Shannon, thank you so much for covering it with detail as you have. You're doing great work at the Register, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Remember, for more news, analysis, and commentary, check out the National Catholic Register online at ncregister.com. As always, we thank you for joining us here on Register Radio on EWTN. Together with Matthew Bunson and my producer, Michael McCall, I am Jeanette DeMello, and I pray that until next week, God bless you.